Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, I almost forgot what it felt like to lose as a Leafs fan for a while there. But alas, Morgan Rielly is out with an injury that he's more than likely going to miss the remainder of the season with. You never really know what temperature to put this light at. So I'm going to be talking about some shenanigans that they can pull, what this means for their long-term future, but what can they do right now? Because obviously, you've heard the news. They've called up Rasmus Sandin. So this is going to be extremely wordy here, so stick with me for a second. These are AHL defensemen under the age of 20 from the 99-2000 season to the 1920 season. These are individual seasons, and I could not put a minimum number of games filter on this without paying $30 a year for this little tool here. So we're just going to have to deal with the guys that have played a really small sample size. But if we just pay attention to the games played column and we look for guys that have played 20 or more games on this list, we're going to see John Carlson here, 48 games played, 39 points, 0.81 points per game. And then we're going to see Rasmus Sandin from this season, 21 games played, 15 points, 0.71 points per game. And then the next person on this list to crack a similar point total, Erik Brannstrom, which is a really highly touted pick for Ottawa that was traded in the Mark Stone deal. And then, look at that, Rasmus Sandin from the season previously. So Rasmus Sandin is really doing something that's purely unprecedented. There are really no defensemen in the last 20 years at his age that have produced at his level. And I know the CHL players don't get to play in the AHL, but still, for a 19-year-old to be putting up those numbers in a men's professional league, it's unheard of. And Chris Johnson reporting last week that the Toronto Maple Leafs are not afraid to burn the first year of Rasmus Sandin's entry-level contract because winning is fun, right? Winning is the thing that everyone does. That's why we play the games. But also, there is a very relevant conversation to be had on the ramifications of burning that first year of the ELC. It's basically like an egg timer, and when that egg timer rings, that's when the contract kicks in. So if a player plays 10 games on his entry-level contract, the timer rings, and that's when the contract starts. If the player doesn't play 10 games, then the contract slides to the next season. So theoretically, if Rasmus Sandin did not play 10 games in the NHL this year, his contract would still have 3 years on it at the end of this season. And that's big for a reason that I'll explain right now. But if we take a look at Rasmus Sandin's contract here, he makes under $900K with no performance bonuses, which is absolutely sick. But if we scroll down here, if Rasmus Sandin, if the Leafs were to burn the first year of his ELC this season, his contract would be expiring at the same time as Morgan Rielly's. And I mean, Morgan Rielly has had his struggles this season, but he's still an elite offensive defenseman on the power play and at 5-on-5. We don't really know what he's going to command on the open market, but to have Rasmus Sandin for that extra year at $900K would have been pretty sweet. And I mean, I said it earlier on in the video, the reason why they play the games are to win. That's the whole point of it. And if Rasmus Sandin helps the Toronto Maple Leafs win games, then by all means, burn the year of the ELC. I don't care. You won't find me complaining. But if they burn the ELC and Rasmus Sandin is just kind of average, he's just kind of neutral in the lineup, then we have to start asking ourselves if it was really worth it. Are we going to be looking back on Morgan Rielly breaking his foot in an 8-4 loss to the Florida Panthers on the road as something that really screwed this team financially? And I know, we shouldn't be thinking like that, but we're Leafs fans, so we're going to think like that. But before we touch on what the lineup could look like moving forward for the next little while, it's important to note that the Leafs placed Jake Muzzin on LTIR on January 12th. And the reason I mentioned the date specifically there is because I've read all the boring details on how LTIR works. And when a player's placed on LTIR, they have to stay on there for a minimum of 10 games or 24 days, which would mean if he was placed on LTIR January 12th, he's not eligible to come back until February the 5th. That's the earliest possible return date for Jake Muzzin. So I said it in my last video about Rasmus Sandin. The reason why he was sent down initially was because of his ELC, but also because there wasn't really the ice time available for him, and we're seeing him quarterbacking power play 2, getting top minutes as the Maple Leafs' best or second best left shot defenseman right now. I mean, he did start the game playing with Cody Ceci, but I don't expect that to last for very long. We could see him with Tyson Barrie for a little bit, and that might be interesting. But really look for Travis Dermott to really pile on the minutes there I really don't think that this is going to continue for him. But if I move my face over here, you're going to see that there's an interesting player on the scratches right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as Timothy Liljegren was recalled by them just earlier today. And the reason why I found this interesting, if you have the Maple Leafs PR Twitter account notifications turned on, you'll know that they shuttle players up and down every single day, and nobody pays attention to it because it's just purely cap shenanigans. But I found this one interesting because I also have Elliot Friedman's tweet notifications turned on, and he retweeted this tweet. So, just a little interesting note there. Maybe Timothy Liljegren actually gets into some games along with Rasmus Sandin, which would present an even bigger nightmare scenario for those that really care about the uber crazy cap stuff. Having Morgan Rielly, Timothy Liljegren, and Rasmus Sandin all do in the same season and not really knowing how long of a term Travis Dermott is going to get is really, really kind of, there's anxiety that comes along with that. But to go back to the point on whether it's worth burning the year of that ELC contract or not, on Sandin or Liljegren, or both of them apparently, if the Leafs win 2-3 rounds in the playoffs this year, or they win the damn cup, I'll shut up about it. Everyone else should shut up about it. 2 years from now, I'll shut up about it. 2 years from now, everyone else should shut up about it. No one should ever mention burning the year on the ELC ever again. But if either or both of those guys don't play too well and the Maple Leafs only make it to round 2 or lose in the first round this year, then a lot of people are really not going to shut up about it, and I'll probably mention it once or twice. At the same time, we got to be asking ourselves, if those two players don't play exceptionally well, or even just a little bit better than average, I know the experience is really good, but what would it really cost for the Maple Leafs to go out there and get a similar defenseman to those guys right now? Would it cost them a second and a third round pick? Would it cost them Jeremy Bracco? Would it cost them Jeremy Bracco and a pick? I don't know. But you got to look at that acquisition cost, and you got to waver whether that's worth saving the cap hit on one or both of those players 2 years from now, right? Because the cap space is a very valuable camaraderie. I mean, the Maple Leafs gave up a first-round pick to dump $6 million of Patrick Marleau this offseason. What's $3 or $4 or $5 million in cap savings worth to them 2 years from now? If we were to do a redraft of the 2018 draft right now, does Rasmus Sandin fall to 29 for the Toronto Maple Leafs to select him? Does he go top 20? Does he go top 15? Does he go top 10 in that draft? And I mean, the last time the Maple Leafs had a defensive prospect that was this highly touted and this talented, you'd have to go back to Morgan Rielly or even Jake Gardiner. Shout out to the signed jersey in the background. More on these in another video. But even Luke Schenn, I'll throw him in that territory. And Luke Schenn's a guy that a lot of people will look at and point to and say that's why you don't rush young defensemen. It ruins them. And yeah, you could stunt a prospect's development, but if the guy's talented enough, the guy's talented enough. And I mean, the Boston Bruins are probably the best example of this. They baptized Charlie McAvoy by fire in his rookie season. His first game of his NHL career was Game 1, Round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So no pressure, right? If these guys are really as good as we're making them out to be, they will make it. So as always, make sure to give the video a like, guys, if you did enjoy it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, the Leafs are still making the playoffs.